Hi, I'm Ethan Corbitt, and thank you for having me on this week's episode of Personality Summarized. Let's get right into it. Let's start summarizing my personality based off the test I took. So after taking a Myers-Briggs personality test, it was determined that my personality type is INFP. So looking at the results of my Myers-Briggs test, it says I'm more introverted. I have a sense of intuition. I like to feel more than I do think, and I like to perceive more than I do judge. Thus, my traits fairly rare, putting me in 14%. My personality type of the population, INFP Dreamer, has me around the 2% area. More on my personality type, it says I'm idealistic and sensitive, and I'm generally pretty loyal and gentle-natured, which I agree with. It says we direct our energy inward and are energized by spending time alone, and they're private and internally aware. So looking at these graphs, it says we're 2% of the total population is INFPs, and 38% of INFPs are males, and 62% are females. Some characteristics of an INFP are idealistic, introspective, future-focused, easygoing, independent, artistic, guarded, meaningful, warm, loyal, abstract, imaginative, intuitive, empathetic, private, adaptable, sensitive, peace-loving, internally aware, selfless, gentle, creative, intuitive, and values-oriented. So some of our strengths are we're loyal, devoted, we have a deep capacity to love and care, we're warm and playful, we're excellent at reading people's feelings, and we really just have a desire to meet the likes of others. And some weaknesses are we tend to react emotionally, we actually extremely dislike criticism, we like to blame ourselves, and we have trouble in conflict. It says my primary function is introverted feeling. It says when I feel, I make my decisions based on feelings. So the introverted feeling function allows you to know what you value. My secondary function is extroverted intuition, which this is a function that I use somewhat highly. This is how I process new information through impressions possible. It says extroverted intuition is my secondary function, introverted sensing is my tertiary function, and extroverted thinking is my least function. Some famous people that have the same personality type as me are Henry W. Longfellow, Princess Diana, John F. Kennedy, Dick Clark, the ancient poet Virgil, John, who's a disciple of Jesus, and many, many others. Some career matches for my type, according to this website, are activists, church workers, teachers, actors, artists, journalists, professor, minister, filmmakers, librarians, graphic designer, writers, psychologists, web designers, photographers, video editors, speech pathologists, researchers, and others. Essentially just jobs that are kind of creative and somewhat hands-on. It says my temperament is lean toward the intuition and the feelings of preference. It says my temperament is NF, which is actually fairly rare. It says 14% and 5% of males. It puts me in the category of NF, the visionary. It says my preferences are introversion, intuition, feeling, and perceiving. It says my extroversion is 47%, which is higher than most other INFPs, but a little bit lower than average. My introversion is lower than other INFPs, but slightly higher than average. It says I'm 13% more intuitive than the average. My sensing is 47%, which is higher than the average INFP, but lower than the average person. My intuition is 53%, which is lower than the average INFP, but higher than the average person. My thinking is 42%, which is higher than the average INFP, but lower than the average person. My feeling is 58%, which is lower than the average INFP, but higher than the average person. And I'm 6% more perceiving than average. Upon going to another website and reading about the traits of my personality, I said I agree with the description. I honestly thought it kind of scarily described who I really was. And I thought I had a lot in common with the prototype of the personality. When looking at the strengths and weaknesses of this personality, it says that the strengths are this personality type is generally kind, generous, empathetic, open-minded, and idealistic. But some weaknesses are this personality type is usually overly self-critical, somewhat unrealistic, they try too hard to please others, and they can become unfocused from time to time. Some potential career paths for this personality type were writers, counselors / social workers, teachers / professor, psychologists, psychiatrists, musicians, and clergy / religious workers. In all honesty, the only one of these careers I really considered was a musician. As you can see by the t-shirt, I am in choir, and I think music's cool. I listen to a lot of music, so I could see that potentially happening, maybe. Who's to say? So upon exploring the personality and relationships section, I determined that the strengths of my personality type and relationships are that they're generally very caring, they excel in understanding what others feel, they're flexible, they can express themselves well, they want what's best for both parties, they're supportive, they understand others' needs, and they can generally express themselves fairly well. Some weaknesses in my personality type and relationships is that they can be shy and reserved, they like to enjoy their personal space a little bit too much, they dislike conflict and criticism, they need praise, they may react emotionally to stressful situations, they can struggle to leave bad relationships and also struggle to just kind of like discipline others, and they're kind of reserved about expressing their feelings. They don't give themselves enough credit in the relationship and tend to blame themselves and put the weight on their shoulders when things go wrong. Upon exploring the personal growth category, I determined that people that fit into my personality type, INFPs, should nourish traits such as their creativity, their spirituality, their empathy, their listening, their acceptingness, and intelligence. INFPs with more developed extroverted traits should really embrace their ability to understand others and to be able to adapt to new concepts. INFPs also constantly struggle with criticism, understanding if they're being criticized or not, having a skewed reality, not fully accepting things that go against their ideals, and just not understanding certain social cues, being oblivious to their appearance, and coming across as unknowingly eccentric, and they hold their opinion higher than other people's. Sometimes they can also get stressed and ignore the bigger pictures, as well as hold other people too high. To be able to best develop, INFPs like myself should be able to accept criticism. That's something we need to learn. We should also learn to not hold ourselves and others as accountable, and really we should just generally be more open to whatever happens. This should be done as well as embracing the great traits that make us INFPs. When it comes to the Big Five, Kolsta and McRae and Norman and Goldberg reach a conclusion that the majority of all traits can really be put into 5 broad categories, regardless of one's culture or background. When the site says that the feedback will be generalizations and might not be specific to everyone, it essentially means it's based on the average results. An example of this could be saying that guys are normally taller than girls. While generally this is true, there's definitely exceptions. So upon taking the Big Five, my results look like this. I was fairly neutral when it came to being close-minded and open to new exploration, but slightly more to the side of open to new exploration. When it came to disorganized versus conscientiousness, I was a little more conscientious. When it came to introverted versus extroverted, I was more introverted. When it came to agreeable versus agreeable, I was heavily agreeable. When it came to calm/relaxed against nervous versus high-strung, I was more on the high-strung and nervous side. So the traits of people that are high scores in these categories look like the following. Openness have traits of original, creative, curious, and complex. Conscientious have traits of reliable, well-organized, self-disciplined, and careful. Extroversion has traits of social, friendly, fun-loving, talkative. Agreeableness has traits like good-natured, sympathetic, forgiving, and courteous. Neurotic has traits such as nervous, high-strung, insecure, and worrying. So comparing my own traits to this, I found that when it came to my openness category, it says I typically don't seek out new experiences and have me in the 53rd percentile. When looking at the conscientious category, it had me as well organized and reliable and put me in the 67th percentile. When it came to the extroversion category, it said I tend to shy away from social situations and put me in the 39th percentile. In the agreeableness category, it said I was good-natured, courteous, and supportive and put me in the 80th percentile. In the neurotic category, it put me as anxious or nervous and in the 67th percentile. I feel like these traits more or less checked all the boxes for me, but I thought they exaggerated a little bit from time to time. An example of this being it said I shy away from social situations. Generally, I think I'm alright in welcome social situations. I just don't like to feel like I don't belong. I like to feel like I belong more than opposed to just feel like I'm out of place. And furthermore, when it said I don't really like to try new things or explore new things, I don't think that's necessarily true. I just like to try things that aren't too far outside of my comfort zone. Like, I'm totally open to trying new sports, new events, whatever. But I'm just not exactly comfortable with stuff like bungee jumping or whatever that's way, way outside of my comfort zone. Thank you for having me on this week's episode of Personality Summarized. Until next time.